Like, did you want to know the very end of the game? Vandalf 1, Vandalf 2? Earlier? What I use Force Energy for? So this one I did a little bit of a different thing. So I think... Okay. Well, show you at the very end, I guess. Keep in mind that, just to show you my secret arts, obviously you want to have the Oracle Shield, because that's the only one that you have. You also want a Ruin Shield, or a Magic Shield, because those are the only ones that are going to give appreciable magic defense that we have availability to. Dragon Shield doesn't really matter as much, and it doesn't give you enough all across the board stats. As for secret arts, I was going with Wizard Folklore, because even though Magic of Insanity makes you do so much damage, it's just your health pool is too low in most reasonable runs for you to be able to combat with that. Like, at the end of the game, I only have 9,000 HP. Which, you know, depending on gear, maybe you can get away with it, but for most runs, you're not going to be able to. I was running Blessing of the Goddess because you always need more armor in this. The only other possible thing that might work is Sign of Life. What Sign of Life does is it extremely increases your HP per 5. So if you could find ways to, like, survive single hits and kite around, you can potentially do that instead, but I think that'd be a slower strat and also more dangerous. But yeah, those are the secret arts. As for my normal arts, pay no attention to this. This HP is only raised up because it was the final part of the game. In the final part of the game, you really can't get... In the final part of the game, you really can't get any effective defense that you don't already have. So I did Conserve MP. 11 is still probably too much for 11 points of 3. You could probably get away with, I don't know, 8, 7, maybe even less. I do think you need some points of level 3, though, just to make sure that you never run out of mana. Even swapping to restore your mana puts you at risk of dying to an instant burst. So, just kind of eliminating that at all is a really good option. Protect, I got many levels of Protect, pretty much as I could at any given time. However, once you start reaching like the 10k mark, like this, it's not really efficient to put points into Protect, because the problem is you're putting 10k points into a small amount of armor that you could potentially put bigger gains in elsewhere. So, like, there's kind of this cap that you can get with armor to some extent. You could decide to put more into it, but I decided against that. I put some in Resist Stun. I think this is actually correct, and I think you kind of... If you have points to spare, you want to do it as early as North Volcanic Cavern, I think. If you don't do it then, there's a lot of things in there that stun you. Dark Shines, Lizard Men. In general, there's tons of things that stun you, but you don't really want a ton of it. Getting a ton of it is kind of wasted over time, but getting a few points in it that are relatively cheap can really help in the long run. Critical Guard, I think Critical Guard is good, it's just I never have the opportunity to spend points on it. Full Perfect Defense. Anything that you can do to mitigate damage is what you want to be doing. As you can see, I've maxed out resistance on all 4 of these. Fire, you can kind of get away with till the end of the game. The ordering in which I did this is you do Lightning first because you are always going to be threatened by Lightning. That starts at the beginning with Greed, but you don't want to put a lot of points into that. It's just kind of what you can do to stop his spark from just destroying you. This gets capped. Let's see. So, you get done with Man Behind the Mask. Once you get done with Man Behind the Mask, you got to consider which of the ordeals you're going to be doing. And at that time, Flame isn't really going to hurt you because you have access to dragon armor. So really all you're worried about is when you go into the lightning one. And when you go into the lightning one, you need to basically have maxed resist. In order to both survive the trip there and to survive the encounter itself. So that'll follow into the first ordeal. During the first ordeal, you have the option of getting resist darkness as well, because once you get down about 7 floors into the ordeals, you'll start meeting undead and devils, and they cast dark spells. And some of the most dangerous things that you're going to run into are dark stalkers, which do entirely dark damage. So raising that to max is... I made it less of a priority in this run, but that's because I was getting destroyed in so many other areas that I couldn't prioritize it. Frost you do before you go into the second ordeal, and you want to max that out, basically. Mainly you're doing that so that you can survive a Icicle Burst and a Ice Pike level 1 billion that the Avatar does at the end of that. And again, you're still pushing the darkness. Resist Flame, you can put some in before you fight the... You could put some in before you fight the Balrog, but I think I'm going to start using the Charm of Light on the Balrog, so you don't really need to use it there. You definitely want it capped before you fight Vandalf 2. And I think you want to have it capped before then, even, because if a Devil Mother decides to cast her fire spell, it can do a ridiculous amount of damage, and Devil Father, the boss inside of the battle tower, also has a very, very damaging fire attack. Flame spell, I think I tried something a little different this run. I tried to go fire first, or I did frost just to get through the early game. Then I was doing fire and splashing lightning, and the reason I was splashing lightning was so that I could take care of lesser vampire. But after that, I was using fire a lot. I think getting Trinity Rod at the top of the Ice Fort is correct. It's just way too powerful of a mechanic to have both lightning and a flame spell going at the same time. What else? So that's kind of how I built for that. Given more amounts, I probably could have put more in flame, but I didn't feel that was possible. Something else to keep in mind is you can't just go all into flame, because you're going to have to clear the Flame Legion hive, and if you're all in on flame, then you won't be able to effectively deal with the dragon in there. So you have to kind of branch out. Lightning, I did a good amount of lightning, actually, as you can see. Probably a little bit more than I needed to, but that's okay. Light spell full, all the way full on everything. You have to have light spell level 6. Or else you just can't beat the game effectively. Dark Spell. I started off with only about, like, a little in 1, 2, and 3. And that got me a really long way. I didn't start branching out more and more until I was going to do the ordeals that I knew were dragon bosses, which was Flame and Lightning. Then I put a little bit more effort into it. I didn't really start pumping this like this until I had to fight Mithril Golem in Impact Hive, Mithril Golem inside of Dark Castle, and it's also really effective in dealing with the Dragon Room in the Research Tower, Floor 1. There's like a ton of small dragons, and just having the ability to use your Wand of Osiris to really damage them down with Chaos Gate is extremely important. But yeah, that's the build in general. So it's a lot to digest, but that's kind of how I approached it. As for my ending stats, I had 7,800 defense power, which is low. Ideally, I want to have something around 11 or 12,000. So this was extremely low defensive power for me. Resistances were spot on. Actually, extremely good. I got really, really fortunate with some of my gear. 96 across the board is phenomenal. 83 on light is still extremely good. At these numbers, basically the only thing that can kill me is an Avatar's special spells. And in Avatar's attacks, since my armor was not very good. Getting petrified if I'm not paying attention, or a full shine. And in order to do that, he'd have to be like right up in my face in order for me to not be able to react in time. Oh, just in case you were wondering too. So I have 36 healing per second. If I put on that one thing I was talking about, the Sign of Life, my healing is now 324. And I've had it as high as like 500 a second. So yeah, pretty crazy. That being said, I just lost 3k defense, and that'd be impossible to work with. I'd just die. Damage numbers. Currently my damage is at 3769 for light. Ruin Shield, Holy Tiara. Holy Tiara is the MVP here, really. Like, Force Crown, you go like, oh, look at how much stronger Force Crown is, though. Well, it's stronger on offense, and it does have higher... and it does have equivalent resistances in some of this stuff, but let me take off a little bit of this. Okay, so you're essentially losing 9%. 9%, 2%, 2%. And some of that might be, yeah, I have Resist Flame Plus, so it's missing 2%, 2%, 12%, and 2%. And you go, that's not that much. Oh yeah, by the way, this is a +8 compared to a +4. So yeah. And this has Resist Dark on it as well, so it would be higher. So yeah, I'm missing out on like 100 attack power, but guess what? I get way more resistance. Way more. Actually gonna see if I can force it